We live in a world where relationships, whether personal or professional, are supposed to be rooted in mutual respect, trust, and value. But sometimes we encounter people whose only objective is to extract, to take what they need when they need it, and leave you emotionally, mentally, or even financially drained. Their attitude isn't always loud or visible. In fact, it's subtle, it's systematic. And if we're not careful, it can break our confidence and distort our understanding of what healthy relationships look like. Let's dissect this. People who use others without caring about them operate with a mindset of transaction over connection. For them, your worth is defined by what you can give, not by who you are. They are not in relationships, they are in deals. You don't matter, your utility does. And the moment your usefulness fades or your boundaries rise, they disappear or retaliate. But here's the twist: they often appear charming, supportive, and even interested until they get what they want. And when you need them the most, they're absent. It's not an accident. It's not a bad day. It's a pattern. And recognizing this pattern is not about becoming cynical, but about becoming aware. These individuals carry an entitlement mindset. They believe they deserve your time, energy, attention, or resources, even if they haven't earned it. They don't ask, how can I contribute? They ask, what can I gain? They mask manipulation as friendship, use empathy as a hook, and wrap selfishness in politeness. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. What makes this attitude dangerous is that it feeds off your kindness, your empathy, and your silence. And we need to teach ourselves and others that being kind is not the same as being blind. Setting boundaries is not rude, it's responsible. Being available for others is noble, but not if it means losing yourself in the process. The world teaches us how to earn, grow, achieve, but rarely how to protect our emotional space from people who don't care about us. It's time we become just as intentional with our emotional energy as we are with our time and money. Start observing who shows up only when they need something, who disappears when you need support, who flatters but never listens. Awareness is your first line of defense. Boundaries are your second. And your ability to walk away, that's your power. Don't let people rent space in your life who don't pay in respect, loyalty, or care. Your life is not a service station for other people's needs. You're a whole human being, not a convenience. 5 keynotes from the speech. Transactional mindset vs. genuine connection. People who use others view relationships as opportunities to gain, not spaces to contribute or connect. Entitlement without effort. They often feel they deserve your help, attention, or resources without ever investing in you meaningfully. Manipulation in disguise. These individuals often use charm and politeness to mask selfish motives and manipulate your kindness. The importance of boundaries, setting clear emotional and personal boundaries, is essential to protect yourself from being used. Awareness is power. Recognizing patterns of one-sided behavior gives you the clarity and courage to step away from toxic dynamics. When we talk about people who use others without caring, we must begin with understanding the core of their mindset, one that is purely transactional. At first glance, it might seem harmless. After all, life is full of transactions. We exchange time for money, money for goods, words for trust. But in healthy human relationships, there is something deeper that distinguishes real connection from pure exchange intention. A person with a transactional mindset does not engage with others to build connection, understanding, or shared growth. Instead, their involvement is strategic. They assess what you have to offer, calculate how it serves their needs, and engage with the sole objective of extracting what they want. Once that purpose is fulfilled, the interaction becomes meaningless to them. You're not a person in their eyes, you're a means. This kind of mindset is deeply rooted in a lack of emotional investment. Such individuals view people not as human beings with feelings, stories, and value, but as tools to achieve their own goals. Their language might sound like friendship, concern, or even flattery, but their actions reveal the truth. They show up when they need something. They engage when there's a benefit. They pay attention when there's a reward. And when your role is done, when the value they saw in you is no longer available, they slowly fade away or abruptly exit. What's difficult about recognizing a transactional mindset is that it can often come wrapped in charm. These people are not always cold or aggressive. In fact, many are socially skilled. They know how to say the right things, make you feel noticed, offer praise, or even share vulnerabilities. But all of this is performance. Their empathy is not real empathy. It is a calculated tool. Their interest is not curiosity. It is a strategy. You are not building a connection with them. You are unknowingly entering into a contract, one that only they understand, one that only benefits them. This is why so many people feel confused after these relationships. Whether it's a friendship, a coworker dynamic, or even something romantic, you walk away feeling used and unsure about what just happened. You gave your time, energy, loyalty. And when you finally needed something back, even something small, you were met with silence, indifference, or worse, blame. And this isn't because you were wrong to give. It's because the foundation was never mutual. You entered with openness. They entered with an agenda. The transactional person doesn't invest in people. They invest in outcomes, and outcomes are temporary. So as soon as your usefulness becomes inconvenient, they no longer see the value in the relationship. This is why over time, you might notice a pattern. They don't remember your important days. They don't support your ideas unless there's something in it for them. They don't ask how you're doing unless they're about to ask for a favor. Their loyalty is conditional. Their presence is performance-based. And their silence is the clearest signal that the transaction has ended. To people with this mindset, relationships are like vending machines. They expect to put in the least amount of effort and get the maximum reward. And the moment that machine stops giving them what they want, whether it's emotional support, connections, time, money, or influence, they're quick to walk away and look for another one. This pattern repeats itself across all areas of their life because they never learned the value of real, mutual human connection. They don't know how to give without expecting a return. And they certainly don't know how to stay when giving isn't easy. The danger in all of this isn't just being used. It's the slow erosion of your own sense of worth. You start questioning whether your value is tied only to your usefulness. You begin to believe that relationships are supposed to feel one-sided. You might even convince yourself that you're the problem, that if you had just given more or been more available, they would have stayed. But that's the trap, because in a transactional relationship, no amount of giving will ever be enough. The goalposts will keep moving. The expectations will keep rising. And the gratitude will keep shrinking. The attitude of a person who only uses others and doesn't care is built on a lack of emotional maturity, a distorted sense of self-importance, and an inability to form genuine human bonds. Their presence in your life might teach you a hard lesson, but it's one worth learning, because once you recognize that transactional mindset, you begin to understand the importance of protecting your time, your energy, and most importantly, your heart. Entitlement without effort is a defining trait of people who use others and don't care about them. It's the belief that they deserve access to your time, energy, and resources simply because they exist or because they once shared a pleasant moment with you. These individuals operate under the assumption that the world, and especially the people around them, owe them something without them having to give anything in return. It's not based on mutual respect, shared experience, or earned trust. Instead, it's rooted in an inflated sense of self, where they overvalue their own importance and undervalue the effort it takes to build genuine relationships. A person with an entitlement mindset will rarely question what they're offering in return. They won't ask whether they've supported you, helped you, stood by you, or even understood you. Their focus is always on what they're not getting fast enough or easily enough. You might hear them say things like, "I thought you would help me," or "I expected you to be there," even if they've never done the same for you. This mindset distorts the entire framework of give and take that healthy relationships rely on. They don't see the imbalance because to them, the imbalance feels justified. They think they're owed your loyalty, time, or care, regardless of whether they've earned any of it. This entitlement becomes especially visible during moments of conflict or rejection. The moment you say no, set a boundary, or express discomfort, they flip the script. Suddenly, you're ungrateful, selfish, or cold. Why? Because they believe they have a right to your eyes. And when they don't get it, they feel wronged, not because you've actually harmed them, but because their illusion of control over you has been disrupted. It's important to realize that this reaction isn't about your behavior. It's about their distorted worldview, one where your role is to serve, support, and satisfy their needs without any accountability or reciprocation. In their world, relationships aren't built, they're owed. And that belief system is deeply problematic because it not only erodes mutual trust, but also places you in a constant position of emotional debt. Every time you interact with them, there's an unspoken pressure to prove your worth, meet their expectations, and keep them satisfied. You're walking on emotional eggshells, trying to avoid being labeled as disloyal or unsupportive, all while receiving little to no support in return. Over time, this drains you, not just physically or mentally, but emotionally. You start to feel like your value is tied solely to what you can give. And if you ever stop giving, you'll be discarded. Entitled individuals are rarely self-aware. They don't recognize how little they contribute to the relationship. They don't notice how many times they've ignored your needs, overlooked your efforts, or dismissed your struggles. What they notice and fixate on is the one time you said no, the one time you didn't drop everything for them, or the one time you asked for something in return. Their selective memory is a defense mechanism. It shields them from having to take responsibility for their own lack of effort. Instead, they place the blame on you, manipulating your sense of guilt and responsibility. This entitlement often masquerades as confidence, but don't confuse the two. True confidence respects others. It values effort and believes in mutual respect. Entitlement, on the other hand, demands attention, loyalty, and resources without offering anything of value. It sees kindness as weakness and generosity as an open door to take more. And it's insatiable. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough because the goal isn't fairness, the goal is control. They want to know they can rely on your efforts without ever matching them. This behavior doesn't show up only in one area of life. It can be seen in families, friendships, workplaces, and even romantic relationships. A coworker who expects credit without doing the work. A friend who only calls when they need something. A partner who demands support but disappears when you're in pain. The patterns are similar and the emotional impact is just as heavy. What makes entitlement so damaging is its invisibility. It often hides behind politeness, charm, or even vulnerability. They may act like they're struggling or misunderstood to justify why you need to give more. And if you're someone with a kind heart, you're especially vulnerable to this dynamic. You want to help, You want to be there, you want to be supportive. But slowly, without realizing it, you become trapped in a cycle of giving that leaves you emotionally depleted and unrecognized. Understanding entitlement without effort is about recognizing imbalance, not just in actions, but in expectations. When someone consistently expects more from you than they're willing to give, when they treat your generosity as a given rather than a gift, you are dealing with someone who feels entitled to you, not connected with you. And until that pattern is broken, the relationship remains one-sided and unhealthy. Manipulation in disguise is one of the most dangerous traits of a person who only uses you and doesn't care about you. What makes it so harmful is its subtlety. Unlike open hostility or clear betrayal, manipulation doesn't always raise red flags at first. In fact, it often comes cloaked in kindness, concern, and even affection. These individuals have mastered the art of appearing trustworthy and sincere, all while slowly bending your behavior to serve their needs. They're not just takers, they're skilled performers, and the stage they use is your emotional vulnerability. People who manipulate don't begin with obvious demands. They begin with closeness. They build rapport quickly, flatter you, mirror your values, and pay close attention to what you care about. They make you feel seen. They might even share personal stories or past struggles to create a sense of intimacy. But this isn't emotional honesty, it's emotional strategy. The point is not connection, but control. The more you open up, the more information they gather. They're not listening to understand, they're listening to use. Once they've established emotional closeness, the manipulation becomes more complex. They may begin to place subtle pressure on you, asking for favors while downplaying their significance, making you feel guilty for setting boundaries, or reminding you of how much they need you at just the right moment. They often phrase things in a way that makes you feel like saying no would hurt them, or that questioning their behavior would be a sign of betrayal. You find yourself doing things you wouldn't normally do, not because you want to, but because you feel obligated, emotionally cornered. This is not mutual support, it's emotional leverage. Manipulators are especially skilled at rewriting reality. If you confront them about their one-sided behavior or challenge their constant taking, they don't apologize, they redirect. Suddenly, you're being told that you're overreacting, being too sensitive, or misinterpreting their intentions. They may even bring up things they've done for you in the past, twisting isolated actions into proof of their loyalty. They rarely take accountability because doing so would remove the power they hold. Instead, they gaslight you, making you question your memory, your feelings, and your right to be hurt. The result is confusion. You start wondering if maybe you were wrong, if maybe you expected too much, or if maybe you're the selfish one. What makes this manipulation especially damaging is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual. It's a pattern of small compromises, of giving in, of staying silent, of downplaying your discomfort, until suddenly you realize you're in a dynamic that feels suffocating and unfair. But by that time, the emotional ties are deep. You care about them, you feel responsible for their well-being, and you're emotionally invested in the idea that this person is a genuine part of your life. That's the trap. Because while you were connecting, they were calculating. These individuals often use emotional triggers as tools. They know when to play the victim. They know when to offer affection. They know when to disappear just long enough to make you miss them, and then return when they sense you're about to pull away. It's a cycle: closeness, manipulation, guilt, distance, return, that keeps you off, balance, and emotionally dependent. Every time you try to step back or assert yourself, they find a way to pull you back in using your empathy as the hook. One of the most powerful weapons in their arsenal is inconsistency. One day they're kind and supportive, the next they're cold or dismissive. This unpredictability keeps you in a state of emotional alertness, always trying to figure out what you did wrong or how to get back into their good graces. This keeps your attention focused on their needs, not your own. And that's exactly where they want you. Distracted, self-doubting, and compliant. Manipulation in disguise is not about cruelty in the traditional sense. It's about control under the mask of closeness. It's the careful orchestration of your emotions to serve their preferences, desires, and goals. And what makes it so hard to escape is that the person doing it may never raise their voice, may never insult you, and may never make an overt demand. But through their actions, they take more than they give. They lead without accountability, and they expect loyalty without reciprocation. The real danger isn't just what they take from you, it's what they condition you to believe about yourself. That your needs are too much, that your feelings are irrational, that your boundaries are unfair. And if you allow this pattern to continue, it slowly reshapes your sense of self. You begin to feel small, unsure, and dependent. And all of us by design, not because you were weak, but because they were strategic. Manipulation isn't just about influence, it's about quiet domination. And until it's recognized and named, it thrives in silence. The importance of boundaries cannot be overstated, especially when dealing with individuals who use others without caring about them. Boundaries are not about pushing people away or being distant. They are about defining where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. They are a declaration of what you will allow and what you will not tolerate. In a world where emotional manipulation, entitlement, and selfishness can be disguised as love, friendship, or teamwork, boundaries become your only form of protection. Without them, people who don't truly care about you will take everything they can. Your time, your energy, your peace of mind, and leave you emotionally bankrupt. One of the most common traits of users is their discomfort with your boundaries. They thrive in environments where lines are blurred, expectations are one-sided, and you're too afraid or too polite to say no. That's where their power grows. They rely on your silence. They count on your guilt. The moment you begin to set clear boundaries, you disrupt that control. You begin to signal that you see what's happening. You start showing that you're aware of your own worth, that you value your emotional space, and that you refuse to allow your kindness to be exploited. This makes them uncomfortable because it takes away the advantage they once held. People who use others without caring often push back hard when faced with boundaries. They may accuse you of being selfish or say things like, "You've changed," or "I thought you cared about me." These are not genuine reactions. They are manipulative responses designed to make you question yourself and take down the walls you've just put up. They are not sad because they're losing you. They're angry because they're losing access to what you provided for them. That could be attention, support, favors, money, or validation. When they can no longer drain your emotional energy at will, they start to reveal their true colors. The idea that setting boundaries is unkind or rude is a myth often pushed by people who benefit from your lack of them. Healthy individuals will respect your boundaries, even if they don't fully understand them at first. But users will resist. Why? Because boundaries require effort. They require the other person to consider your needs, your limits, your well-being. And someone who only cares about themselves has no interest in doing that. For them, a relationship is not a mutual exchange, it's a platform for consumption. The clearer your boundaries, the harder it is for them to feed off your availability. Boundaries are not just about saying no, they are about saying yes to yourself. They are about reclaiming your right to rest without guilt, to prioritize your mental health without apology, and to engage in relationships that feed you, not just those that drain you. When you begin setting boundaries, you begin to notice the imbalance more clearly. You see who only calls when they need something. You realize who disappears when you need support. You start to feel how exhausted you've been keeping everyone else comfortable while neglecting your own discomfort. Sometimes people who have been used for too long start to believe that boundaries are punishments. They worry that saying no will hurt others. But the truth is, people who truly care about you will not be hurt by your honesty. They will be honored by it. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are gates that you open and close depending on who respects the terms. And when someone doesn't respect those terms, it's not your job to change the terms. It's your job to reconsider the relationship. Without boundaries, your life becomes reactive. You start responding to everyone else's needs while losing touch with your own. You forget what peace feels like. You grow accustomed to emotional chaos. You begin to fear what will happen if you stop being constantly available. But once you start putting boundaries in place, you begin to reclaim control. You realize that your worth is not based on how much you give or how much you endure. It is based on how well you protect the parts of you that matter. Every relationship, whether professional or personal, should have mutual understanding and respect. Boundaries are the markers of that understanding. They tell the other person, this is how far you can go. This is what I will and will not accept. When someone violates that, they're not just crossing a line, they're choosing themselves over your well-being. And when they continue to do it, they are showing you exactly how little they care. It's your responsibility to notice, not to fix them. You can't control who they are, but you can absolutely control how much access they have to you. When you establish boundaries, you're not becoming hard or cold, you're becoming clear. Clarity is power. Clarity protects your time. Clarity preserves your peace. And most importantly, clarity separates the people who are in your life because they care from the people who are in your life because they need something. Awareness is power, especially when dealing with people who use others and do not genuinely care about them. Without awareness, you become an easy target. You find yourself caught in cycles of emotional exhaustion, confusion, and guilt without understanding why certain relationships drain you while others don't. Awareness is what pulls back the curtain. It's what allows you to see through the charm, the flattery, the excuses, and the emotional manipulation. It is the first and most essential step in protecting yourself from being used because until you recognize the pattern, you remain trapped inside it. Many people who use others operate under a layer of subtlety. They rarely show up in your life declaring harmful intentions. They may seem generous, interested, attentive, even kind, but everything they do is conditional. Their support has strings attached. Their attention comes and goes depending on what they want. Their concern surfaces only when it serves their interest. You might not notice it at first because it often takes time for these patterns to emerge. That's why awareness isn't just a flash of insight. It's a process of paying attention. It's watching closely. It's listening deeply, not just to what they say, but to how they behave when there is nothing in it for them. Awareness allows you to identify when something feels off, even if you can't explain it in the moment. It helps you notice how the conversation always turns back to their problems, how they never ask how you're doing unless they need something, how they disappear after getting what they want, only to reappear when a new favor is required. These are not coincidences, they are habits. And the more aware you become of these recurring behaviors, the more clearly you can separate genuine relationships from manipulative ones. The power of awareness also lies in what it reveals about yourself. It shows you the reasons why you've tolerated being used in the past. Maybe you feared confrontation. Maybe you didn't want to seem selfish. Maybe you confused being helpful with being available at all times. But when you become aware, you begin to challenge those beliefs. You begin to ask better questions. Why do I always feel drained after talking to this person? Why do I feel guilty when I try to prioritize my own needs? Why do I continue to show up for someone who never shows up for me? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. They are the gateway to breaking the pattern. With awareness comes the ability to make conscious decisions. You stop operating on autopilot. You stop excusing toxic behavior as just how they are. You start to trust your instincts when something doesn't feel right. That gut feeling you've ignored so many times, it becomes your guide. You begin to see that your discomfort is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's your mind and body telling you that something is unbalanced and that it's time to make a change. Awareness also prepares you for the emotional resistance that follows. Because when you begin to pull away, when you start saying no, when you stop being easily available, people who only used you will notice, and many won't be happy. They may try to guilt trip you, question your character, or manipulate you to going back to the old dynamic. But awareness keeps you grounded. It reminds you that you are not rejecting people. You are rejecting behavior that harms your well-being. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming discerning. And there is a powerful difference between the two. People who use others rely heavily on your lack of awareness. They need you to doubt yourself. They need you to believe that you're being too sensitive, too dramatic, or too selfish. But the moment you become aware, you disrupt that illusion. You start seeing their charm as a tactic, not a trait. Their neediness as a tool, not a cry for help. Their flattery as a hook, not as genuine appreciation. This clarity can be painful at first because it often means reevaluating people you once trusted. But in the long run, it protects your emotional and mental health more than anything else. When you cultivate awareness, you reclaim control. You stop reacting out of obligation and start responding with intention. You realize that not every call deserves an answer, not every request deserves your energy, and not every person deserves access to your inner world. You begin to create space for relationships that are mutual, uplifting, and sincere. And you learn that awareness is not a moment. It's a mindset. It's a way of moving through the world with your eyes open and your standards raised. You are no longer just surviving the damage of being used. You are actively preventing it. And that shift in mindset from passivity to awareness is one of the most powerful changes you can make in your life. Because once you truly see someone's pattern, you can never unsee it. And from that moment on, you can choose better for yourself, your peace, and your future. The truth is, not everyone who enters your life comes with good intentions. Some come to take, not to give. They see your kindness as a resource, your time as a service, and your silence as permission. But the moment you become aware of these patterns, the transactional mindset, the entitlement without effort, the manipulation masked as care, you gain the power to change how you engage with the world. You realize that boundaries aren't selfish, they're essential. That protecting your energy isn't rude, it's responsible. And that being used is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of someone else's character. The more clearly you see these behaviors, the less tolerance you will have for them. And that is where real strength begins, not in changing others, but in honoring yourself enough to stop allowing people to treat your value like it's negotiable. You don't need to be harder or colder. You just need to be clearer. Clear about what you accept, clear about who gets access, and clear about what you deserve. Because once you truly understand that, you no longer settle for relationships that drain you. You choose the ones that respect you.